Welcome back to the Arch Advocate Podcast. Thank you if you are joining us on YouTube. This is a podcast and not, this isn't exactly a YouTube show. I just throw it up here because some people like to take their podcast that way. And today we are going to be talking about one Jordan B. Peterson joining once again Joe Rogan. Now listen, there's a special place in my heart for this guy, right? Like, if you're watching this, like I'm just like you, man. Like, I'm a fan of the Joe Rogan podcast. Right? I don't watch every one. Sometimes there's guests on there and it's just like, never heard of you. And, you know, like I'll see the name and I'll read the bio and I'll find out like who they are and what they're about. And it's like, oh, he's a chef. He's a sushi chef. And it's like, I'm out. I'm not saying that he actually had a sushi chef, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not into everything. And like 2 years ago, I opened up Joe Rogan's podcast and it's like Jordan B. Peterson. Okay, never heard of you. Open it up, read the bio. Oh, he's a clinical psychologist. It's like, I get it. I'm bored. I'm cleaning my house. I got to do some laundry. Got to wash the dishes. I'll throw this on and just have some background noise in the back. Click play. Mind blown. Just like you, right? You didn't know who Jordan B. Peterson was before Joe Rogan. Stop fronting, right? I listened to Jordan B. Peterson and I was just like, yeah, this is the guy. This is the guy that can fix it all, right? There's an entire crop, an entire generation of young men who've just gone astray because they did, in our divorce culture, where it's like, man, they just pass out divorces left and right. Your Honor, my husband psychologically abused me. He abused you. Here's a divorce. Now that guy's got to pay you half his money for the rest of his life. Enjoy suicide, sir. Right? That's the generation. And now we've come to this sort of crescendo where you have an entire generation of young men who have no idea who they are. They have no identity. You get your identity from your father. You know what I mean? Like, that's the natural order of things. And because we have a fatherless generation, you've got all these kids walking around going, I don't know what this ding dong in my pants actually means. I think it means I can go into any bathroom I want. And if I just say I'm a girl, I can join a wrestling competition and fight girls and win every single time. But hey, you know what I mean? It's like, an entire generation lost because they don't know who they are. They have no values, they have no grasp or appreciation of truth, right? An entire generation lost. Angry young people. Angry at God because of what's called transference in psychological terms, right? You're born, you grow up, and you realize, like, when you're born, like, you see your parents and you think your parents are gods, and then you grow up a little bit and you find out, like, oh, your parents are full of crap. And you think, you grow up and you look at your teachers and you're like, oh, these are people whose entire life is imparting knowledge and wisdom. They must have it all figured out. And then you realize, like, oh no, these are just corrupt people too. They're just assholes. What's next? Politicians. Oh, these politicians. Oh, Bernie Sanders he's gonna get those millionaires and the billionaires, and he's gonna make them pay their fair share, Bernie likes to say. Right? And then the wise people will realize, like, oh no, politicians, they're just douchebags too. They're just corrupt people. Just like, oh no, wait a minute. Oh no, if everybody is corrupt and everybody's bad and I'm part of everybody, oh no. There's a lot of people that don't make that final connection. It's like, no, everybody is corrupt and you are part of everybody. Do you understand? You're corrupt. You have things to work on. That's why you need a balanced household. You need a mother and a father because it gives you your best chance. And that's science, baby. Having a mother and a father your entire life, that gives you the best chance. And then the other stuff, graduate high school, get a job, and hold it down. But just like you, man, I listened to Jordan Peterson 2 years ago or whatever it was, and it was like, wow, man, finally somebody, here's this guy, he stood up against his government. He's like, no, I'm not going to let you make me say things. That completely encroaches on my God-given rights. God gave me the right to speak. I know that because I came out of the womb with it. Therefore, it's mine. You can't have it. It's mine. There's nothing you can do to take it away from me. You can sue me, you can throw me in prison, but it's just like there was that old Chinese. Was he Chinese? He was a missionary, and his name was Watchman Nee. Watchman. I don't know if that was his real name, but that's like, if you look up his books, it's Watchman Nee. He wrote a book called, one of them was called Spiritual Authority. It was really good. But Watchman Nee lived in communist China. He was a missionary to China. And he was Chinese or something. And, he preached the gospel, so they threw him in prison. When he got to prison, he kept preaching the gospel there, so they cut out his tongue. After they cut out his tongue, he'd just write his messages out, so they chopped off his hands. He's like, no, dude, my ability to communicate is God-given. You can throw me in prison, you can cut out my tongue, you can chop off my hands, but this is my right. And I will not allow you to take that away from me. I'm going to keep doing what you know what I mean? And that's what, when I saw Jordan Peterson, just like you, I was like, yeah, you can't make me say stuff. And thank God for this guy. And he started breaking down biblical things. And I was like, okay, good. Maybe this guy can help people, not only understand that they are free to communicate, they're free to speak, they're free to defend themselves, they're free from oppression from the government. And when your government starts oppressing you, you need to make a stand. You need to stand up against them, because those are just people. They're weaklings, just like everybody. They're just weaklings, just like you, just like me. Right? And I'm not going to let this other weakling come in and take my power, right? And he did it. He stood up. And I was like, good. He's teaching people to make a stand. And then as I listened on, he started talking about, archetype stories and, what's in the human heart and how the whole Nazi thing happened. And then he started breaking down the Bible, and I was like, oh, good. Maybe now, all these people who are walking around thinking that they're atheists, oh, I'm an atheist, oh, I hate God. It's like, well, hating God doesn't make you an atheist. That makes you an anti-theist. And that's different. Very different. You're not an atheist, sir. You believe in God very much and you hate him. That's anti-theist. But I digress. I thought, okay, good. He's teaching people, don't be ashamed of this, man. It's part of you. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't be ashamed of your freedom of speech. Don't be afraid of your God-given rights, and don't be ashamed of the fact that you grew up in the Christian world. And the reason why you are free and the reason why you are so prosperous is because you live in the Christian world. That's why. And if you don't believe me, go to the other parts of the world where Christianity never really took hold. Go see how those people live. And then come back and you can talk your smack to me. But Getting into Jordan B. Peterson. Look, I've made a couple of videos coincidentally in the last couple of days, kind of ripping on Jordan B. Peterson. But let me just, before you hit stop and hit the down button, the down like whatever, let me just explain a couple of things. I'm actually not a hater, right? I'm not a hater on Jordan B. Peterson. And let me qualify that, because I was thinking about this yesterday. Man, am I getting into hater territory? Because I don't want to be a hater. I've been a little bit vocal recently about my thoughts on guys like Joel Osteen down there in Houston, and Creflo Dollar, wherever it is that he's at, and these kind of people, right? These televangelists, multi tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollar people. Ministers, right? I don't have anything against ministers making money. If they want to write a book, sell lots of books, make a lot of money, great. But when it's you're using people's faith to get rich, that's where I have a problem. And I have been silent for a very long time about guys like Joel Osteen, because excuse me. By the way, I'm getting a little bit better. The cough is starting to go away a little bit, but I never talked about guys like Joel Osteen for a very good reason. One, I don't want to be seen as a hater, right? Whatever, as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, I've got somewhere around 250 followers, or subscribers, right? It's not very many. But, as time goes on, you get more, and, your audience builds and whatever. I don't want to be in the business of talking garbage about people. I don't want to be a hater. There's a lot of people out there in the news media, on YouTube, whatever, that like their whole thing is just bashing on other people, and I don't want to do that. And furthermore, it's like, if you would have asked me about guys like Joel Osteen just a year ago, I would have told you, like, I never met the guy. I don't know him. I don't know the guy. Like, I already had my opinion filled out, but I would never share it with you because it's like, I don't like the guy. I think his message is fluffy, and I don't think it's of any eternal value, but that's him, man. I'm not responsible for him. I am responsible for me. And those people that go to his church, it's like, listen, those people, whatever, you are responsible for the condition of your own soul. You are in control of that, right? That's why I don't let people talk to me. Like I don't let ministers talk down to me, because it's like, dude, you're on Judgment Day, you're not going to stand before the Father, and he's not going to ask you questions about me. He's only going to be asking you questions about you, right? When I stand before God, he's not going to be asking me questions about you. It's going to be a very one-on-one, intimate, pointed conversation, pointed squarely at my life, what I did with it. You know what I mean? And so I don't talk about Joel Osteen. That's the reason why. However, I have changed my tune a little bit of late, because these times that we're in, we're seeing, when you see a sociological push where, and it's not unanimous, but it's strong in its own sense, that there's this societal shift where there's this one dynamic of people who are going around saying things like, white people are bad, and if you are white, then you need to be ashamed of yourself. Shame. Right? Shame. You need to feel shame because you're white. Oh, you're a man? You need to be ashamed of that because there's the patriarchy, man. There's toxic masculinity, and if you're a man, then you've got it. You've got the sickness. You need to be ashamed of yourself. Oh, you're a white man? Ooh wee, that's the crown, man. You're public enemy number. You're the worst thing to ever happen to this planet. You shouldn't procreate, man. You're making the earth worse. By the way, nobody should procreate. You shouldn't have babies because, man, the environment, more people means more carbon footprints. And if you're out there procreating, man, and keeping your genetic material moving down the line of history, you should be ashamed of yourself. So there's like this weird sociological shift, but those aren't the only examples. People are trying to make people be ashamed of the color of their skin, both white and black and whoever. People are trying to make other people ashamed of their own gender, their own biological sex. What else it has been at work? People are telling other people they need to be ashamed of themselves for procreating. People have been saying for a very long time, you should be ashamed that you once called yourself a Christian. You should be ashamed of the fact that your parents were Christian. Because all the Christians came over and they just started slaughtering all the Native Americans who were just a bunch of peaceful hippies. Oh, what about the Crusades? Oh yeah, that time that all the white Christian men went down to the Middle East and just started slaughtering all the peaceful Muslims who were just sitting around, hanging out, smoking hookahs, and practicing the religion of peace. And then all those mean white Christians showed up and just started slaughtering everybody. You should be ashamed of yourself. Well, I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed because you don't know your history, number one. I'm not ashamed because I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. For it is the power of God unto salvation, to be rescued from this condition. Not ashamed of any of that stuff. So here comes Jordan B. Peterson, and he stands up to his government and says, I'm not ashamed of my freedoms. I'm not gonna let you make me say things. And then boom, he's thrust into the white hot spotlight, and I soaked up as much of it as has been available. And the reason I was saying all that is like, look, I'm not a hater. right? I'm not in the business of hating Joel Osteen. I'm just like, if you're a Christian and you're listening to that guy, it's like, I'm going to judge you. Like, I'm not going to talk to you about it, but I am going to be like, oh, that's what you're into? You know what it's like? It's like Thai food. I don't believe that people actually like Thai food. I think it's a conspiracy. Thai food is bland and boring. I think it just became like a fad where it's like, oh, we're going to this new Thai food restaurant. It's like, dude, that food doesn't taste like anything. I think people just got caught up in it. You know what I mean? Wow, why did I go down that rabbit hole? But it's the same thing. It's like Joel Osteen and these kind of people. It's like, why do you like that? Why are you listening to that? What does that do for your soul? Oh, it tells me that if I'm a real good boy, that if I just do what Joel Osteen does, then God will show me his favor financially. God will show me his financial favor the way that he has with Joel Osteen. And that's truly what I want out of God. I mean, the salvation is nice, but really, if I'm honest, I'd really just rather have the money, right? Which brings me to my point. This is, like, again, oh yeah, haters. By the way, I hate Thai food. But haters, this episode is not going to be me hating on Jordan B. Peterson. I don't hate him. In fact, I'm still a huge fan of his work. But I have one problem. That's what I'm going to talk about. Now, in the case of Joel Osteen, Jordan B. Peterson, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and Ricky Gervais, and these kind of people, I'm going to do just a really quick segment of Bible stuff. And I would like to thank Pastor David Klingscales for mailing me my Bible. It arrived this morning. This is my Bible that I've had since I was 16. Someday I might get into the relevance of what this particular copy of the book means to me. I can't read any other Bible but this one. Literally, I cannot, like, when I read other Bibles, it's like I'm reading the Quran or something. It's like, I don't know what I'm reading here. Right? But I've been reading this particular book since I was 16. Like, I know where everything is, and I just got it in the mail today. I left it before I came on this trip. But very happy to have this back. And the first thing that I'm going to read to you, I'm going to paraphrase. I'm not going to read it word for word. There we go. I'm going to paraphrase it. And this is Exodus chapter 20, verse 7, if you want to look it up yourself. This is when Moses was reciting the Ten Commandments to the people. This was right after they had left Egypt. Exodus chapter 20, if you need them. Exodus chapter 20, verse 7. And it said, "Thou shalt keep my name out your mouth." Paraphrasing, of course. Keep my name out of your mouth, says the Lord. Look at Richard Dawkins. Who is Richard Dawkins? What is he famous for? Why is he famous? Why is he a name that you know? Tell me why it is. Like before you answer, do you know what he does for a living? Like what his job is? Not what he does for money, but what he does professionally that he had to go to college for and learn how to do and then went and did it. Do you know what his job is? He's a biologist. I've got his little wiki thing up here right here. Richard Dawkins, Clinton Richard Dawkins, FRS, FRSL, I have no idea what those means, is an English ethologist. Ethology is a study of animals. And an evolutionary biologist. And I think if you broke it down even further, he is a microbiologist. He is a biologist. He's a biologist, people. Now, let me return you to the question, what is he famous for? What is he famous for? Why is it that when I say Richard Dawkins, you can see his face in your mind? Why is he that famous? That by the mere act of me speaking his name, you know exactly what I'm talking about when we're talking about a stinking biologist. He's a biologist. You shouldn't know who this guy is, but you do. And why is that? What is he famous for? He writes books talking about how much he hates the Christian religion. And you say, "Oh no, Pete, no. I read the what is it? The God Delusion, or The Blind Watchmaker, or The Magic of Reality. I've read these books. He's not against Christians. He's against all religions." Really? I would invite you to take a closer look at the books. Remember when Richard Dawkins came out and he said, "We must mock these people, these religious people. We must mock them." And then Ravi Zacharias got in his face and he says, "Okay, good. Well, after you're done standing here mocking me, I'll tell you what, why don't you and me go get on a plane and we'll fly down to Saudi Arabia and you can practice what you just said down there." And Richard Dawkins shut the F up after that. He stopped saying that. You know why? He doesn't hate religion. He hates God. And he hates Christians. That's what he's famous for. And he writes books talking about how much he hates Christianity. And that's why he's famous and that's why he's wealthy. Keep my name out your mouth, says the Lord. Exodus 20, verse 7. This is the problem that I have. Richard Dawkins might be the most brilliant microbiologist who ever lived, but I wouldn't know it because none of his books are about microbiology. He doesn't write books about that. He writes books about how much he hates God. He hates the Jesus God, right? He's eerily silent when he talks about the Muhammad God or the Buddha God or the Vishnu God, but very vocal, just like Ricky Gervais, right? You never hear Ricky Gervais talking about Islam, ever. Never, right? There's something peculiar about that. Keep my name out your mouth, says the Lord. And when it comes to Joel Osteen, it's like, well, here's a guy who says he's a Christian guy. He's got a big Christian church. He even peppers in the name of Jesus here and there in his sermons. But he's using the name of the Lord for gain. And this is what it means to blaspheme the name of the Lord or to use the name of the Lord in vain. It doesn't mean to say, "God damn it." That's not what it is. Using somebody's name in vain is like, okay, so I'm married, right? My wife has my name. My children have my name. And if we were in the United States, my wife could go to the bank, fill out a loan application, borrow a bunch of money, or mortgage off our house or whatever, because she bears my name. And she could do it in secret without me knowing. That would be using my name in vain and for nefarious purposes. Right? Using the name. When my boys get older, they will be able to do the same thing. They will be able to go to my bank and talk to my banker and say, "Hey, my dad sent me down here, said I need $5,000 or whatever." I'm just spitballing here. That's what using a name in vain means. Don't use my name. Unless I tell you you can use my name. Unless I authorize you to use my name. Unless I empower you to use my name. And when Joel Osteen stands up there in the name of Jesus, saying, look at how nice my clothes are. Jesus loves me. Look how nice my clothes are. Obviously, Jesus loves me. You know what I mean? It's a very female. It's a very emasculated. You know what I mean? It's like if I go out and I buy my wife a $2,000 dress and $5,000 shoes, some $10,000 earrings, dress her up, it would be an expression of affection, of love and affection for sure. And my wife would be able to walk down the street and go, look at how much my husband loves me. She would be able to do that. That's what I see when I see Joel Osteen up there equating his financial success with his clothes and his cars and his homes, plural. And he's saying, look at how much God loves me. That's using the Lord's name in vain, and it's disgusting. Whew. I'm sorry, I'm really trying to not be a hater. I'm not. I guess I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot on that cause, aren't I? Let me get away from that. Jordan B. Peterson. I'm not a hater, right? As a matter of fact, look, I had it. Oh, here it is. 1 second. Oh, and I'm sorry I didn't take this stuff down. I should have gotten a little bit more prepared before I started the podcast. Here is Jordan B. Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life, Antidote to Chaos. Here's, I'm turning it sideways so that you can see, like, it's the actual book. It's not just a cover. It's a good book. I think you ought to read it. I think you ought to read it and practice everything in it. Do you understand? I'm not a hater. But there's one thing that this guy's doing wrong. And I think that if you're listening and you are one of the flock, if you call yourself by my master's name, then I think that you should be aware of this. Right? Not a hater, Jordan B. Peterson, big fan of his work. He's making one critical error. False prophecy, all right? Now, it is my strong belief that we are once again living in the time of prophets, right? And I don't believe that because I can name anybody who I believe is a prophet. The reason I believe that is because there are so many false prophets out there, right? You know that there's prophets out there when the false prophets become so visible, right? The false prophecy of Sam Harris. Sam Harris is out there talking about like, oh, it's all determined, man. It's all laid out. Like, it's all because of your DNA and because of this and because of that. And it's all like, you don't, like, whatever decisions you make those because you had to make those things. It's like, what if I punch you in the face right now? You saying that, like, I don't have any control over that? Of course I have control over that. Well, yeah, but if you don't, it's only because you have some moral, just bam, punch you in the face. What about now? Are you saying I'm immoral? Are you saying I don't have morals because I just punched you in the face? No, I did that because I chose to do it, because I did, that's the funny thing is that it's called determinism, as if everything is already determined, but it's not. It's the other determinism where it's like, no, things happen in my life because I determined that those things would happen, right? Somebody sits down and writes a book. It's like that took the sheer tyranny of will to do. Writing a book is very difficult. And it's foreign. It's like there's an allergic reaction that happens, and a lot of writers talk about this. Like, it's hard. There's a war that goes on when you're trying to write a book. There's a book written about that. It's called The War of Art. Like, it takes a tyrannical will to sit down and write a book, and it's like you have to be determined to do that. And so here comes Sam Harris, who preaches a form of spirituality that is completely, like, the form itself is that it's bereft of any sort of spirituality. It comes with meditation, which is a form of prayer. It comes with deep thinking. It comes with some sort of, set of rules. But at the end of the day, look, what he's doing is he's leading people astray. He's leading people right into nihilism. And you look at that guy's face and tell me that's not the face of a nihilist. He's a false prophet, right? In as much as Joel Osteen is. He's false. In as much as Jim Jones was, or whoever else, who's the L. Ron Hubbard. These are false prophets, right? They come to say, listen, because what that word prophecy actually means, it doesn't mean to see the future. It actually means to just impart the word of God on in the stead of God. Right? So when people show up and they're like, here comes L. Ron Hubbard saying, hey, listen, man, you need to what's the thing that they do when they sit down and they take an account of all the things in their lives? They look, man, you need to take an account of everything in your life. You need to clear out the thetans, man, and you need to do this. It's like, dude, that's false prophecy. You're leading people astray. You're leading people away from the source. Right? That's what a false prophet is. Here comes Sam Harris, and he's like, oh, no, I've got this whole God thing figured out, man. And he's leading people right into nihilism. And here comes Jordan B. Peterson, who does good work. He does solid work that is, like, complete. Right? Like, he's answered a question that and spent his life answering a question that I've asked myself a lot. Like, how, like, when you can go back just 2 or 3 pages through the annals of human history, you just go back to a very near time to us, 1930s. We all know people, like, if you're listening to this podcast, you know somebody who was alive to whatever degree then. So not that long ago. And there was Germany and the most educated, one of the most Christian people on the planet, and they all simultaneously just lost their minds, started murdering Jews and everybody else that they could find. And then Stalin crops up and 50 million more people die. And then, crazy. It's like the whole planet just lost their minds. And it's like I would always look at that and it would give me a haunting feeling like, well, those are just people and I'm just people. And if those people could lose their minds to that degree, then technically I could lose my mind to that degree. How does that work? Like, what do we do to make sure that doesn't happen? And the only way to get that answer is like, well, how did it happen then? Like, what happened? What happened here? And here comes Jordan Peterson 2 years ago, and he says, look, I've dedicated my whole life to this very question. So I was like, thank God, here comes the prophet. Right? Everybody welcome the prophet. He's here to tell us like how we don't turn into, Stalin or Lenin or Hitler or Pol Pot or whatever. Like this guy's dedicated his whole life to answering this very question. Welcome, welcome. Right? But the thing is that what he's doing, and on today's episode, which I've gotten an hour, almost 2 hours into. It's 3 hours long, and I've gotten an hour 44 into. The problem is that if you're going to do expository teaching on the Bible, if you're going to give exposition, which means like if you're going to expose truths, right? That's what that means. It means to expose. Right, like you can read, if you read a parable, right? Jesus comes along in a parable and he says, well, the kingdom of heaven is like a man who found a treasure in a field. Go on. Well, he found a treasure in a field and he took that treasure and he went back home and he gathered up all his stuff and he sold everything that he had so that he could go back out and buy the piece of land that he found the treasure on. That's what the kingdom of heaven is like. End of parable, right? So if you want to know the truth about like what that parable is about, then you need somebody to come along and expose, right? Like, well, okay, number one, we need to figure out why this guy was out, rooting around in the dirt in the first place on some strange soil. And then we need to figure out, there's you have to work it out. That's what exposition is, right? Here comes Jordan B. Peterson, and he is, exposing things in the Bible. He's doing expository, sort of teaching. But I've yet to hear this guy say, I am a follower of Jesus Christ. I believe that Jesus Christ is not a fictional character, but a real live person who was born, lived, was tortured to death and crucified, and staged his own resurrection 72 hours later. Right? After being beaten, after having his flesh torn from his skin and the beard pulled from his face, which, God, that's a tough one. Like, if you're a man and you've ever grown a beard, like, have you ever pulled on your beard? Like, it's nuts. It's a different kind of pain altogether. And his beard was torn from his face. And then he was nailed to the cross, right? Through because you've got all these bones in your palms. There's there's a bunch of them in there. That's where they nailed him to. And if you didn't know this, crucifixion is actually death by suffocation. Because when you're held in that position and your body weight takes over, like it cuts off your ability to breathe. So it's being filleted, right? Like the skin was torn from his body, beard torn from his face, right? Punched and smacked and spat upon. And now he's dehydrated. He's been up all night, so he's exhausted. And he's hanging there on a cross. And then they come along and shove a spear into his heart. Dead, dead, dead. Dead as dead can be. 3 days later, 72 hours later, he's resurrected. That's what the Christian people believe. And if you don't believe that, then you don't get to be a Christian. You can be whatever you want. Like, go join Scientology. I don't care. Go join the Jehovah's Witness. Go be a Mormon. Go be a Buddhist. Convert to Islam. Do whatever you want to do. But if you're going to be a Christian, there's no getting around that thing. You have to come to the cross, right? I don't hear, like, if Jordan Peterson is going to talk about the Bible, and if he's going to try to expose the truths that are found in those scriptures, if he's going to pussyfoot, it's like, dude, don't do that. Don't. Like, if you want to stand up there like Stefan Molyneux does, this is the thing. It's about honesty, right? Stefan Molyneux is a guy who says, he'll get up in the camera and say, hi, you know, look at me, I'm bald. I kind of actually, I have some things in common with Stefan. I'm a big fan of his work, big fan of Stefan Molyneux. Mostly because he's honest. He'll get into the camera and be like, look, I'm an atheist. Now let me tell you why it is that Christianity screws me up so bad. Like, he's honest about it. Like, he'll tell you exactly like where he stands with Christianity. Because as long as you're doing that, it's like, okay, fine. I will listen to anything you say and I will consider your words. And if you want to have a conversation, I'll tell you where I think that you're wrong and the things that I like and I appreciate and I think that you're right. Like, we can have that as long as you don't try to blindside me. Don't step up to the plate and say, listen, I'm here. I've spent my whole life studying the condition of man. I've done a great deal of, a great many of the conclusions that I've come to has been through the study of the holy text of the Jew and the Christian, otherwise known as the Bible. I've read this book, and now I've got these things that I have to say about the condition of man because of this book, right? It's like, if you're going to do that, it's like, okay, then you need to identify yourself up front. Are you an atheist? Because that's what Stefan Molyneux does. He says, listen, today I'm going to be talking about Proverbs and the wisdom that is found in the book of Proverbs, but just so there's no misunderstandings there, let everybody know I'm an atheist. Like, I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe that there's some all-powerful spaghetti monster in the sky. But the fact is that, you know, Proverbs says that pride goes before destruction, and that's exactly what happens, and there's a clinical reason why that happens. And then I can look at him and say, thank you, Stefan. Thank you for not trying to blindside me or trying to rope me in or trying to use my faith against me or trying to use my faith at all. Because you're an atheist, like you and me, we're not the same. We don't have the same beliefs, right? So as long as you let me know what the score is beforehand, then I'll be willing. But when you show up and you don't identify yourself, what tribe are you in, Dr. Peterson? Are you a follower of Jesus Christ or are you not? It doesn't really matter to me. As far as like when it comes to when I read this book, I see the truths in it. Truths, plural. Right? I'm a Christian, so Jesus Christ is the truth, the living embodiment of truth. But I can read this book and be like, oh, that's, that's something I can see Jesus saying. Like I can find Jesus in that. That's not hard for me. But you have to let me know, like you know what I mean? Like have some common decency. And make a stand. Don't, you know what I mean? Like you were so courageous when it came to standing up against the Canadian government. Have the same courage. Just let us know. Are you a follower of Jesus Christ? When you talk about the Bible, what is your source of reverence? Do you look at it the same way that I revere, like the Bhagavad Gita, whatever, the ancient Hindu text? Like the Hindu religion, like their holy book is called the Gita. I can revere that because it's thousands of years old, and I have a love of history, and I have a love of literature, and I have, you know what I mean? Like I can love that book without calling myself a Hindu, right? And I can read, like, there's some really cool stories in the Gita, and I can tell you those stories but I'll tell you up front, like, dude, I'm not a Hindu, but this is a really cool story, right? I'll have the common courtesy to be like, hey, listen, everybody, let me read you the story of Arjuna and the big battle that they had there. But just as a premise, I just have to let you know, I am not a Hindu. Like, I don't believe that there are 10,000 different gods and whatever. Like, I'm a Christian, but this is a pretty cool story. I'll have the common courtesy. And Stefan Molyneux, thank God for him, like, he has the common courtesy to let everybody know, like, hey, everybody, I'm an atheist. Let me tell you something. I really appreciate the work of Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? Like, he's honest about it. You know where he's coming from. I still, to this day, cannot figure out where the guy is coming from. And I don't like that, because there is a huge need for people to look at a guy like that and say, oh, this guy is courageous and he's talking about the Bible and he reads the Bible and he gains perspective from it and he has an appreciation of his culture and Western civilization because he reads the Bible and he knows that, you know, without the Bible, there is no U.S. Constitution. Without the Bible, there is no Magna Carta. And without the Magna Carta, there is no U.S. Constitution. So really it goes back to that. And with that, you know, and prior to that, without the Bible, there was no Council of Nicaea. And 300 years before that, you know what I'm saying? Like, it goes all the way back. You can trace all of the roots of Western civilization all the way back to Abraham. All the way. And, like, you don't have to be a Christian to understand that and appreciate it. I know that because enter Stefan Molyneux. He loves the fact that he lives in Western civilization, and he understands, because he is a somewhat of a historian, right? Certainly not, you know, a Dan Carlin level, but, you know, he loves history. He can look at the Bible and say, look, I really appreciate this work, but by the way, everybody, I'm not a Christian. But he'll let you know. Where are you at, Jordan Peterson? If you're an atheist, fine. Fine. Just tell me. I'm still going to read your book. I think that was the point I was trying to make. I'm still going to read your book. I will still recommend to other people. I'm going to read this book to my children, Dr. Peterson. Don't call me a hater. Before you people start, you know, putting notes on this on the YouTube version or whatever, or making notes on Reddit. I'm going to continue to read his book. I'm going to, you know, when my kids get old enough, I will read it to them and I will teach them the things that are in that book and teach them to practice those things. I'm not a hater. What I do hate is when people use the name of my Redeemer. When people take the name of my Master and they use it for things that are other than their intended purpose. Exodus chapter 20, verse 7, keep your name, keep my name squarely out your mouth. Keep my name out of your mouth. Right? Like, Jordan, if you are a follower of Jesus Christ, just say that. Otherwise, stop talking about the Bible. You don't have any right. You don't have any right to try to sneak in and be like, well, I believe the Bible, but I'm not a Christian. It's like, well, which one is it? If you're an atheist, have the balls, right? Like Stefan Molyneux. Just come out and say, well, yeah, I'm an atheist. I also really appreciate the Bible. Or if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, then come out and say that. Don't be ashamed of it. You weren't ashamed to stand up for yourself against your government. Don't be ashamed of this now. This is what I have to say about this. Now, if you are a fan of the show, please show your support by hitting subscribe, would you? Leave a comment. Listen to me. If you're gonna write stuff on my, you know, in the comments on this YouTube or on the podcast, I am going to invite you on this show. Just understand that. And if you don't have the balls to come on my show after you talk trash to me on social media or YouTube or on, you know, the podcast notes, keep your mouth shut. If you don't have the balls to come on this show and confront me one-on-one in a calm, reasoned, measured manner, don't leave your comments, because you're just, well, I was about to cuss, but I'm not going to. You know what you are. You're a coward if you do that. If you have like a legitimate gripe, let me know. Like, you can come on the show anytime. Well, not anytime. My hours are very much different than yours. But the invitation is out there. If you do have something constructive to say, I welcome it. You guys, if you're a long-time listener to the podcast, you know. People will write to me and check me on things, like, all the time. I'm not a little bitch. Like, I don't shy away from that. Like, if I'm wrong, Okay, I'm wrong. Like, I'm used to that. You know what I mean? I'm wrong about a lot of stuff. Anyways, and if you want to support the show, if you want leave a little tip in the tip jar, right? Not your ding dong, but like a tip with money. You can go onto my PayPal or become a monthly Patreon supporter. I need to get, Dave Cleanscales gave me this idea. If I had, what was it, like 50 people at $50 a month. No. Yeah, 50 people at $50 a month, or no, 100 people at $50 a month. I can move back to the United States. So that's what I'm going to shoot for. But if you just want to leave a tip, send me some dough on PayPal, and I'll read, leave me a note, and I'll read it on the podcast, and then you will be famous in front of all your friends, like guys like Todd Milligan, guys like Mr. Peak, guys like Bad Wolf, right? Ian. It's what we do here, people. We make people famous. Nelly, is it Sabatin? Whatever. I'm gonna have the Proud Boys back on the show here pretty quick, I think, to talk about some stuff. Because man, there's some nefarious stuff going on in the world right now. This is why it's a problem. If this was 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said anything. It's like whatever. That guy. It's just like why I was silent about Joel Osteen's. It's like whatever, man. Like I don't care what you do with your Christianity. It's none of my business. It's none of my concern. I'm not concerned with what you do. I don't care. I care when like if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey man, I'm really struggling with this or with this or this," then I care. But if I don't know you and you're just some Christian that lives in Texas and I don't know who you are, I don't care what you do. I'm not responsible for you. I'm not responsible for the condition of your soul. When I see people getting up on stage and charging lots of money to shake their hand and whatever, and using the name of my Redeemer, it's like, okay, now I got a problem. I don't want to identify yourself, right? Hark, who goes there? Identify yourself. Shout out to Stefan Molyneux. Thank you for always letting us know, like, hey, I'm an atheist. I don't believe any of this stuff, right? It's disingenuous when it's like in the case of Richard Dawkins, it's like, dude, you are a microbiologist. Keep God's name out of your mouth. You are famous because of God. You're a microbiologist. It has nothing to do, your life has nothing to do with your professional life. You're famous because you write books about what a little bitch, what a little butthurt bitch you are, that God wasn't very nice to me. That's who Richard Dawkins is. I don't like it. Identify yourself. Because if Richard Dawkins rolls up and says, "Oh, I'm a microbiologist," it's like, okay, then no, I don't want to talk to you about Jesus Christ. You're a microbiologist. Why would I talk to you about that? If I want to talk to somebody with a PhD about God, I will seek out Ravi Zacharias. You know what I mean? I won't come seeking you. Identify yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I think Richard Dawkins is like the perfect example. Like, if he shows up and says, "Hey, let's talk about Jesus and how much I hate, religion." Okay, well, like, what's your background? Like, what is your field of expertise that you're gonna level me with some brilliant information about God? Like, what is it? What is your field of study? Like, what is it? What is your qualifications for saying these wise things that you're about to say? Oh, I'm a microbiologist. It's like, what the F does that have to do with? What does that have to do with God? Ricky Gervais is a comedian, and in every single one of his specials, he's like, oh, the people who are Christians are stupid. Ooh. It's like, all right, dude. All right, this is really fresh material, Ricky. This is like Amy Schumer, like, oh, my vagina smells like a barn animal. It's like, dude, you said that for the last 3 specials. It's unoriginal. It's not funny. Okay, Ricky, we get it. You're an atheist. Keep it moving, son. Right? Nobody cares. You're an atheist, so therefore I don't care what you think about God. Because obviously you don't think anything. Because that's what the word atheist means. Dr. Peterson, who are you? Hark, who goes there? Identify yourself. Are you a follower of Jesus Christ, or are you an atheist? And that's why you hang out with atheists and gays and, whoever. The other Weinstein brother is pretty cool. Not the Evergreen State one, but the other one. But like, who are you? You know what I mean? What are you about? If you want to support the show, go on to archadvocate.com, arch-advocate.com, and leave a little tippy tip on PayPal. Leave a message if you want to tell me what a stupid idiot that you think I am. Great. Do that on the PayPal as well. Do that on the YouTube channel. Just understand that you will be getting an invitation to come on the show. And if you talk smack and then you do not respond to the invitation, you're a little bitch. That's the show for today. I will talk to you on Monday.